Sleepers, Yoda this is. Powerful you have become. But the dark side I sense in you. I sense used other draft kits you have. Once down the dark side, forever will it dominate your destiny. A dark place we find ourselves in. And a little more knowledge lights our way. The light of SleeperWire Draft Genius. Get the Draft Genius from SleeperWire. Passed on what they have learned. The Draft Genius is here. Scroll up the force it is. Pre-order now by SleeperWire Patreon going to. Yes. Do or do not. There is no drop.
I'm ready for
Welcome, sleepers. All right, it's Friday. We got camp. We're about a week in. We got a bunch of stuff going on right now. It's the time of football, right? It's in the air, guys. Putting out a ton of show this week. It must be near. I'm your host, Who's the Prophet. With me today is our very own George from the Breaking the Grind podcast. And we got a very special guest, Anthony Cervino, head writer from Gridiron Experts. What's up, Anthony? Glad to have you on. Glad you could be on.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
All right. So, got a lot of stuff that's going on. A lot of it's what coach speak. Some of it not so much. We're going to analyze it all. We're going to get into it. We've been doing a lot of mock drafts. Now, I want you guys to give me a value, a guy that you've been seeing in value so far. We did this on our Monday show. It came out actually earlier this week. And we had Josh ADHD on. He said he likes John Brown, likes a value, playing at sea level, high altitude sickle cell stuff, may not affect him now. So we're going to start with you, Anthony. Who's your value guy right now that's going in mocks? Who are you finding yourself just like, why is that guy there?
Chris Ivory. I absolutely loved Chris Ivory since he signed with Buffalo, and that was before all the LaShawn McCoy allegations. The RB2 in Buffalo, if you think back to a few years ago, whether it was Carlos Williams or Mike Gillislee, they finished with at least 8 touchdowns and 500 total yards. And last year, the drop-off was Jonathan Williams, who was supposed to be the guy, and he was released, and they brought in an aging Mike Tolbert, and he didn't get the job done. It forced McCoy to get the most touches he's had since 2014. I love Chris Ivory in the spot. 14th round ADP, no risk.
Yeah, I mean, zero risk there, and what a home run if McCoy happens to miss camp. Now, right, we're very early into the season, early camp, so there's still word that he may or may not get suspended. I mean, there hasn't really been much going on aside from that, but as you were alluding to, it seems like he's going to have standalone value based off of what we've seen, and they don't really have much pieces. It seems like they might have to be a running team. What do you think about that, George?
Listen, I love the Chris Ivory talk. You're getting him for pennies on the dollar. Look at what Jonathan Williams did last year, or when he was in Buffalo 2 years ago, rather. I mean, they don't use Shady on the goal line at all. For some reason, they prefer the bigger backs. You can't go wrong with Chris Ivory, and we've seen Chris Ivory be a full-time starter before, so it's not like it would be a role if Shady does get suspended that Ivory has never been in before. We've seen him in a productive role as a starter.
Yeah, I mean, LaShawn McCoy, he did have 6 touchdowns on the ground. So although he did kind of kill you, not killed you if you were in a PPR because he helped you out in other ways, but if you were in a standard, I mean, those first 5 weeks were kind of rough for you. And he did have 2 touchdowns in week 7 after the bye. Seems like they got back on schedule. It was against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay was terrible last year. Everybody torched Tampa Bay. But, I mean, it seems like they're going to have to run. So I like that pick. What do you got for me, George? I know earlier this week you had Crowell, another great pick. Who else are you seeing on these mocks that you kind of can't believe is there and you're happily snagging them up?
So I'm going to go with the projected to be the wide receiver 2 in a high-capacity offense in New Orleans. That'd be Cameron Meredith. He's going right now as 11.09. He's coming back from a knee injury, which is all reports right now. They're taking it easy with him, but he's participating on 11-on-11 drills. It looks like he's good to go for the start of the camp. One thing we know about that offense is Drew Brees slings the ball. He hasn't had a year where he's thrown for under 550 passes since 2009. Last year, he was a little under 550 passes, but before that, you have to go back to 2009. Another thing Drew Brees does, he throws the ball for yards.
Yeah,
he hasn't. 2009 was the last time he had under 4,500 yards. I'll take the wide receiver 2, or at least the projected wide receiver 2, at the end of the 11th round in the high-powered Saints offense all day long.
Yeah, I mean, and even if he gives you if he gives you the wide receiver 3 numbers in an offense, if he gives you Ginn numbers, you're not upset at that late. And Ginn is still there, so if he does that, you're and he should do better, right? Being the wide receiver 2 there. What do you think about that, Anthony? Are you on the same hype train with Meredith? We've been hearing a lot of hype around him, or is it just kind of maybe too much? What do you think?
I'm buying into Cameron Meredith 100%. I like the landing spot in New Orleans. They do obviously want to pass the ball. I also believe that Drew Brees is going to bounce back a little bit. I'm not sure if he's ever going to be top 5 again, but I do think he will finish better than QB9 or QB10 where he finished last year. And that's because we're not going to see Mark Ingram for a few games, and I think they're going to have to pass the ball more to compensate. I don't know if Alvin Kamara can handle a full RB1 workload by himself.
Yeah, that seems like a recipe for early injury if they do that. And no one wants to see that happen. No dynasty owners, especially people who kept him. People are going to be drafting him over the likes of David Johnson, Saquon Barkley's, Odell Beckham's, Hopkins. He's going before all those guys. In most recent mocks I've seen, even some analyst mocks, he's going top 5. So, I mean, it doesn't bode well if they do that. They should pass on they should lean on passing. I mean, they have a Hall of Famer quarterback. I'd love to see Drew Brees bounce back because, man, he was terrible last year.
They're indicating that they want to pass the ball more. They brought in Ben Watson, who caught close to or at 80 balls 2 years ago, or the last time he was in New Orleans. Yeah, they brought in Cameron Meredith. They drafted Traquan Smith. They even signed Michael Floyd yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Floyd. I think people forget that in 2016, I believe Jay Cutler was still the quarterback in Chicago. Cameron Meredith had 66 catches for 888 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's good. If he's healthy, he's going to improve on those numbers big time with a much better quarterback in Drew Brees.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of touchdowns that should go up. I mean, the guy only had 23 touchdowns last year, Drew Brees. And that's got to be a career low, right? I mean, I don't have it in front of me. He only threw 8 interceptions. So, I mean, if you're in say a Scott Fish or something like that takes away -4 every, that helps you there, but he's got to pick up a lot. He finished top 12. He was number 12 quarterback for you last year. He's got to see a boost, at least to the top. Anthony, you were saying 9 or so, depending on your scoring. He's got to at least get there. I mean, otherwise, I don't see how the rest of these receivers are producing unless they're really just leaning on the run. And maybe we see more Terrence West. Maybe we see Boston Scott, play a role, which is he's kind of like a Kamara himself. But maybe we see that, So Drew Brees certainly should bounce back. I'm going to go with last show I had. Last show I was listening back to that. I didn't state them. I had Stills, pretty much the Miami group of guys I'm seeing I don't know why they're going Parker's 9th, Stills I believe is 11th, and then Amendola's 14th. That's just stealing. I mean, if any of those guys do what they're projected to do, even if Stills is probably the safest guy in the group, I love Stills every year. He's in the 3rd year of his offense. He should boom. I mean, there's a plenty of targets that are not going to be going around anymore. They don't have a real. I mean, if you want to say, Mike Gesicki, if he's the one that's going to get a good volume share, but they haven't had a real tight end, and some time it seems like. And again, no Landry, so still should be a huge value. He's going super late. For this show, I like Chris Hogan, even though he's not going that late. He's kind of creeping up on draft boards, but man, I mean, you got him and Gronk. Like other than that, what else do they have? They got Braxton Berrios. They got, they let go of Jordan Matthews. We're going to get into that. They don't have much options. So, I mean, Chris Hogan, he should be drafted as high as probably the third round, in my opinion, just off of value alone. Now, I know Edelman's going to come in, but Edelman's just going to come in, and I love Edelman's value as well. So I gave you Miami's backfield, the wide receivers last show. Patriots wide receivers, man, you got to go out there and get these guys at the value you're getting them at. It's insane. What are you guys thinking about Chris Hogan?
I'm actually fading Chris Hogan at his ADP, 12th pick in the 5th round as far as fantasy football calculator. I'm just not buying it. He has the injuries behind him. There's a lot of uncertainty. I also think the New England Patriots can bring in a wide receiver. There are a few available. You can even think about Corey Coleman via trade. There's a Des Bryant lingering out there. There's a few spots where he can land actually. I'm buying into the Braxton Berrios. I did like Jordan Matthews in the slot. But when you talk about, Julian Edelman and Chris Hogan, Hogan's not really a slot receiver.
No.
So Hogan, he's going to be that boomer bust outside deep threat. I think the slot receiver in this offense eats, and that's going to be Julian Edelman. I'd rather have him at a later ADP.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. What are your thoughts about this, George? You fine with Hogan's value? I mean, it's probably going to creep up. So although I'm loving his ADP right now in about 5th, 6th round or so, it could creep up even further. Edelman will be coming back, as Anthony will be alluding to. Or are you fading Hogan as well?
No, so where he's going at right now, I like him. It's not a terrible price to pay. He was highly effective at the beginning of last year. There was a solid 4-game stretch where he got no less than 5 catches, 68 yards, and a touchdown or 2 touchdowns in the games. So he had a good solid 4-game stretch from weeks 2 through 5 where he was extremely productive. And then he kind of tailed off and he got injured. But where he's going at right now in the 5th round, it's one of those guys where I would draft him at the 5th or 6th round. I would ride him for 2 or 3 games, and then he would be a piece I would add into a trade somewhere. Get what you're going to get with him before Edelman comes back, and then I would send him off high for another piece. I don't think it's he was somebody I would want on my team the whole year because I don't think he'll have that sustained production of being a 5th to 6th round pick. You got guys like, according to Fantasy Football Calculator, you got guys like Sammy Watkins going after him, Golden Tate, Jarvis Landry, Michael Crabtree. Okay. But you got a couple of guys going after him that I would, Emmanuel Sanders, guys I would much prefer over him for year long. But if I'm looking at Chris Hogan as a filler for, a few games where I can get him and sell him at his peak, I don't hate the drafting him as 60th overall at the end of the 5th round. That doesn't bother me none at all.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really have much. So, yeah, I'm loving him there. No Brandon Cooks. No, they don't really have much. Even, we'll get into their injuries later. But, man, Hogan, he could be pretty huge. And if you got some Pat League mates, that's not a bad idea at all. Have him on your team and ship him off while he's nice and hot. Maybe pair him with like a Kenyon Drake or something like that. And then try to get like a nice top RB1 or something like that if you're lacking in that area. So yeah, not bad at all. Not bad at all. Not a bad way to start your team. We're gonna get right into the news and hype, or this not so hype. I mean, this is not good for the Seahawks. They got Doug Baldwin's knee injury. It's forcing him to miss some time. It's looking like it's the whole preseason. However, doctors are hopeful and confident that he'll be back to return to the regular season. Are you guys worried or kind of happy? That like, yes, Baldwin's value is going to drop some more. Or is this something legit to worry about? I mean, they don't have much pieces in the offense. Doug Baldwin's, it was climbing the charts. Where is he now for you, George?
So I'm fading him with the knee injury. I wasn't a huge fan of the Seattle offense to begin with. I've been kind of saying it since the beginning. Once Des Bryant got cut from Dallas, that I would absolutely love to see Des Bryant go to Seattle. I think he's a perfect fit. He's exactly what they need in that offense. And with this injury to Doug Baldwin, I would say even more so that they would be smart to go out and get Des Bryant.
They got Brandon Marshall. You got Brandon Marshall over there. What are you thinking about?
Brandon Marshall, he might not make the team.
Yeah,
there are rumors he might seriously might not make the team. So
man, what a fall from grace. Remember we were drafting Brandon Marshall, like, oh, he's just removed from being a top 3 receiver. And nothing happened the following year. He just killed a lot of people. And then he went to the Giants. People thought that he would do well there. I'm glad, I'm a Giants fan, and, I protect myself with not having much Giants players. That's the way I protect my heart, But what are you thinking about that, Anthony? Oh, sorry. Actually, George, you were going to finish up on you were going to say about
I was going to say real quick about Brandon Marshall. He's one of those guys I will never draft because every single time I draft him, he kills me. Every single time. I drafted him after he had a great year. He was terrible. It was the year he got injured and Alshon Jeffrey blew up. And so I didn't take him the next year, and he blew up. And then I took him the following year, and done. I'm done with this dude. Just retire. Go do something nice.
All right, man. Baldwin, this hurts us a lot. Anthony, where are you on Baldwin? Or are you high on Brandon Marshall now that Baldwin may not start, until the start of the season?
Well, I've kind of been taking Brandon Marshall, again, just like Chris Ivory, at a nothing ADP.
Right.
And just like how some people want to roll a dice on like a Cortland Sutton who's buried on a depth chart, well, I'm the type of person who's going to roll the dice on a veteran trying to get another shot. And at Brandon Marshall's ADP, if he makes a team, if he gave you like Anquan Bolden numbers from a few years ago, his last year with the Lions, 8 touchdowns, 50 catches, and 700 yards, you're not going to take that with a player who's not even getting drafted in some leagues. So I get he might not make the team, but it makes sense due to opportunity to take him.
Right.
And I'm going to fade Baldwin due to the knee injury. But in Seattle, man, it is Russell Wilson or bust. I'm not buying into Rashad Penny at his ADP. If anything, Chris Carson. Because all we're seeing at a Seahawks camp is Proceeds is going to have a third down role if he's healthy, and Chris Carson is going to open the year as a starter. I cannot justify Rashad Penny at his ADP. There's no offensive line. It's a dumpster fire. It's going to be Russell Wilson. He could pass the ball 600 times. It's going to be all Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, he's going in the 3rd, 4th round. That's just crazy. I'm speaking of Penny.
Yeah, I'm not buying anybody in that offense, to be honest. The only person I would really want is Russell Wilson, and that's about it. There's no really with Doug Baldwin and his knee. I was pretty high on Baldwin, but that knee injury, him possibly missing all of training camp and or all the preseason rather, it's just I'm selling everything up there. I hate what they did in the draft. I don't like it. No, they have nothing.
I mean, they're missing Jimmy G. They're missing Paul Richardson. They added Brandon Marshall, who, much of us don't believe in, other than a dart throw at the end of the late rounds. I mean, who's going to stand to benefit? Someone has to do something aside from Russell Wilson. I mean,
Ed Dixon, maybe?
Quarterback.
I like that. I was just going to say Ed Dixon. I like that.
Ed Dixon. That's what I got.
Okay, I mean,
I'm not a believer in Tyler Lockett. I'm not a believer in Brandon Marshall. You just heard about Rashard Penny. I'm not buying him. I mean, I don't know. There's just so much bad there. That I'll take Russell Wilson if he's there, but I'm not feeling comfortable with anything else on that team right now.
Man, when this news came out, I was at first I was a little worried, and then, I was like, what, kind of excited about this news because Doug Baldwin does not need rapport with Russell Wilson. He doesn't. He could just step on like week 2 if he missed week 1. That's even if he does, right? I mean, he could be fine. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Can anybody else make the case that the Seattle Seahawks are wasting Russell Wilson, much like the Green Bay Packers wasted Aaron Rodgers in his heyday? I mean, he's still Aaron Rodgers,
Right.
but Aaron Rodgers in his prime, you can almost say it's almost passing, and he won his Super Bowl early, and since then they put no pieces around him, or not enough.
Right. That's terrible. I mean, I feel for those guys as competitors, especially, Russell Wilson, the way he had to see himself not get a back-to-back championship to the Patriots. I mean, thanks, Pete Carroll. This is, I feel, I agree with you there, Anthony. This is, they don't seem to be adding much. They have so many glaring weaknesses in so many positions that, a lot of this does not make sense. A lot of us are just scratching our heads with the Penny news, with the Carson news, now with the Baldwin news. What do we do with this Seattle? And I think everybody just kind of drops. And I'm of the firm belief that you just got to sit back and take value. So, last pick, Brandon Marshall. I'm not upset at that. Doug Baldwin, if he falls to me in a, like a 4th, 5th round right now, I would still take him in the 4th round. I mean, I still take him over, Demarius. I still take him over Alshon. He's got the torn, he's coming back from that injury. I still take him over a lot of these guys that are supposed to do well. I'm not taking him over Hilton, obviously. I'm not taking him over other guys. But, man, if he comes back like nothing ever happened, and he's already got that built-in rapport with Doug Baldwin, he could be, you're talking about a top 6, potential wide receiver. There's missing so many pieces. He's going to see so many targets once he comes back. And they got Dixon. Maybe it's even Vanette. But it's certainly interesting, to see. We had Josh ADHD on the show earlier this week, and he was saying, it's kind of just talk, but there's so much talk. It's really talk.
At some point, the noise slowly transition into news.
Right.
And I'm not on board yet. I still think that Penny's going to be the running back there that starts. But the more noise there is and the more praise that's heaped upon Chris Carson, I'm thinking that it's more going to be a running back by committee between the 3 running backs, between Carson, Penny, and Procise. I think all 3 are going to get snaps. I think all 3 are going to share time. And for fantasy purposes, I'm at the ADP for Penny's going right now. I'm fading him.
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of have to. I know we touched on this a little bit, Anthony. You have anything more about Carson? Are you buying into him? He's so late that I feel like you kind of have to.
Yeah, Carson is at, a 9th round ADP.
Yeah, I mean, if you're getting a starter in the 9th round.
10th round. He's actually the first pick in the 10th round. And Rashad Penny is going close to 5 or 6 rounds earlier. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Right. Yeah, it's certainly a head scratcher. And, I mean, they've got a lot of things to figure out, especially with this Baldwin news. All right, so we're going to move on to some unfortunate news out of Patriots camp. We talked a little bit about this earlier at the beginning of the show. Jordan Matthews on injured reserve, ending his season. And because it's just a 1-year deal, if Matthews can return before the season's in, they can do injury settlement and he can sign elsewhere. So let's talk, I guess, a little bit about the Patriots receivers. We did talk a lot about them earlier since, I had Hogan as someone I'm high on. So you're buying into Braxton Berrios, and give us a couple other names that might do something, because, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's that many guys available to help this team out. So I'm going to start with you, George.
It's weird. I mean, you got Malcolm Mitchell there. We don't know how he's recovering from his injury. There's Braxton Berrios. It seems like almost every year we look at the Patriots and there's so many questions around their receiving corps. And this year, if Edelman didn't get suspended, it really wouldn't be that questionable. But who they're going to have come in to replace Jordan Matthews, I've got no idea. I don't know.
Anthony?
If it's somebody on the roster, I know they're working Philip Dorsett in the slot, but he's not really a slot receiver. Like I said earlier, my best bet is going to be Braxton Berrios to emerge at some point. But otherwise, it's sit back and wait for Julian Edelman.
No Kenny Britt? You don't think Kenny Britt's going to do nothing?
I mean, he looked good, you know, at one point. He did. It's not like we're laughing now, but, I mean, he did look good at one point in his career. Really good.
Any chance Cordarrelle Patterson?
I mean, it could be. I mean, he's got the speed. If he ever figured out how to route run, because that was apparently his thing, he's got, you know, one of the GOATs at the helm. If he doesn't make it work out here, but, hey, Anthony, the guy's going undrafted. We got to start paying attention to Cordarrelle Patterson, even if it's just we got to start paying attention to him. Even if we're monitoring him, we got to start monitoring this guy more. I haven't heard really anyone in the fantasy community talk about him until you probably just brought him up just now. We were talking about all the other receivers, Braxton Berrios. We forgot all about Cordarrelle Patterson. I mean, he was on commercials, and I named one of my teams after him back in the day. I mean, you know,
if anybody can squeeze something out of Cordarrelle Patterson, it's going to be Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
And I think we also sleep on the fact that Rex Burkhead can also play the slot a little bit. So we could see a lot of that in the first.
We also saw just a lot of James White.
That's what I was just getting ready to mention. Any thought about James White? 'Cause I seen a thing that was retweeted today by Elvin Silva, and it was all the pass completions that Tom Brady has had so far in the preseason, and James White was near the top. And I think people forget how much trust Tom Brady actually has in James White.
Yeah, I mean, James White was used a lot. I mean, when they didn't really have much options else. Well, it seems like anytime they're injured, they go to at some position, whatever it is, usually a receiver, they throw in James White. I mean, he seems to be a very competent receiver out of the backfield. I mean, he had 43 rushes last year. I mean, not much, but he had 56 receptions. The year prior, he had 60. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that he gets 70 balls. And if he catches 70 balls, I mean, maybe he's a guy we're not really talking about as much. I mean, I've got James White on quite a few teams, actually. But, yeah, let's talk a little bit more about James White then, I guess, being an option. Especially, we got some other news. Patriots rookie Sony Michel, he walked under his own power to the medical tent at practice, but he did not return to practice. Now, they were probably just being cautious with him. He was helped by head athletic trainer Jim Whalen. Man, that's another blow for the backfield. Possibly, I'm kind of liking this, too, because if he's fine, his value is going to, plummet somewhat. And I'm still targeting Sony Michel just off of the way they targeted Sony Michel. But again, let's get into the backfield. Let's segue that into, we can talk about Michel, White, Burkhead here. What does this do for the backfield? And we're going to start with you this time, Anthony.
If we're going to talk about the New England backfield, how I've been handling it, I'm one of those people who embraces New England running backs because everybody else seems to fade them, and then they fall to value. I know in best ball, I am taking both Sony Michel and Rex Burkhead when I can, and in redraft, I'm reaching for Rex Burkhead.
Yeah. Where about are you reaching from? If telling the fans, as long as they're not in any leagues with you.
He's a 7th round ADP. I'm taking him as early as the early 6th. And it's not a big reach, but it's still a round ahead than everybody else has taken him.
Yeah, I would say that's it's not a big reach, but that's definitely about a round or two earlier than I've seen him go.
Depending on draft flow, I would take him in the 5th, to be honest.
Oh, wow. Okay. He certainly, he was magnificent for you last year. I mean, Burkhead, when he did start, the problem with Burkhead is just he always seems banged up. That's the problem with him. But when he did start, week 2, he gave you 13 points in a PPR. Week 8, he gave you 15 points in a PPR, 10, 15. And week 12, he gave you he gave you 19.3 points. And week 13, 25, he helped you out in the playoffs with 16.3. Then he hurt you a little bit with 8.7, but he got banged up again. So yeah, Burkhead could be huge. But
he fits
again,
the New England Patriots mold because he's the player that can do it all.
So I guess where are we going with Sony Michel? I mean, they picked him in the first round. I feel like the Patriots kind of have to lean on the run, like kind of how the Saints did last year. And they might just use, heavy running back. So you might see a lot of Burkhead, but I still think that you see a lot of Sony Michel. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see a lot of James White at all. I actually have them all on one team, and I'm actually starting them because this is like a super flex happy league that I have the whole lineup. I have them in my whole lineup. So George, what are you thinking about the backfield here?
Of everybody that they have on that backfield right now, I'm the highest on Rex Burkhead. He quietly had 500 total yards last year, 8 touchdowns. People were saying that Sony Michel is going to come in and fill that Dion Lewis role. The person that I think is going to fill that Dion Lewis role is actually Rex Burkhead because he does everything that Dion Lewis can do. He can run the ball, he can catch the ball, and he can also do something that Sony Michel has shown he can't do, and that's hold on to the ball.
Right.
So, I mean, I get the draft capital. I understand that, yes, New England, they never spend an early round pick on running backs. They don't do it, and they broke the mold this year, and they did. But I think people are reading way too much into the Sony Michel pick in the first round draft capital. I think they're going to use the hell out of Rex Burkhead, and I think he's actually going to be the New England running back you want.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't have any arguments there. Doesn't sound like Anthony's got any arguments as well. We're going to move on to, I guess, the wide receiver core that's banged up there. So Eric Decker, he worked out for the Pats on Monday. The team's currently dealing with a bit of injury issues. So Eric Decker, I mean, if they bring him on, is he a guy that you might target? Because we haven't really seen many people target Jordan Matthews. So being that it's Eric Decker, do you see him, people targeting him? And could that be a mistake, or is that going to be great for draft owners? And we'll start with you, George.
I'm not buying into Eric Decker. I want nothing to. If he goes to New England, I want nothing to do with it. That whole wide receiving core. The two people I'm interested in is Edelman and Gronk. Those are the only two people in the receiving core. And James White. Throw James White as a running back. I'll take him as well, but I'm fading everybody else in that wide receiver core. It's just way too much uncertainty.
And we talked a lot about this, but Anthony, you got anything more? I'm sure, people who hate the Patriots are probably just waiting for us to just get over to this portion of the show so we can move on with everything else. What are you thinking about Eric Decker?
I'm not buying into Eric Decker.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not much to say there.
I was trying to say something, but there's, like you said, Anthony, there's nothing to say there.
They need bodies. And speaking of bodies, former teammate of Eric Decker, Quincy Enunwa, he suffered undisclosed injury yesterday, or maybe it'll be 2 days ago by the time this airs. Per Todd Bowles, he wouldn't give details, but said it's not related to last year's neck injury. This is per Rich Cimini. Man, this kind of blows. I'm hoping he's fine because I love me some Quincy Enunwa. And I was grabbing him in quite a few leagues. Chad Hansen, anyone? George?
No, the two wide receivers in the are on the Jets that I was most interested in was Enunwa and Robbie Anderson.
Right.
I'm not buying into Chad Hansen at all. Give me Enunwa, give me Robbie Anderson, and that's really all I want from the wide receiving core there.
Anthony?
Same here between Robbie Anderson and Quincy Enunwa, but I think the other name to watch is going to be Kearse.
Yeah, I mean, Kearse was very quietly. I mean, he was very few points removed from being a wide receiver, too. I mean, back end, but still. I mean, he was.
You can make the case if McCown stayed healthy,
Yeah.
He would have finished there.
Yeah. I mean, he put up some amazing numbers. I've seen people give up some nice stuff for Kearse in the beginning of the year while he was putting up those numbers, and he kind of tailed off the middle of the season. Then he kind of hopped back on, but only to kind of destroy you after, if you had him week 12 and week 13, where he gave you 105 and a touchdown for 23 points. And then week 13, 9 for 157, no touchdown, but still 24-7 for 24 points and 24.7 points. You probably started him, maybe not. You probably didn't start him against Denver, but week 14, you might have not had any other options. He only gave you 1 point there against New Orleans. Another good defense. These were 3 really great defenses actually to end the season. But if you started him there, he killed you. But yeah, Kearse could be huge. A lot of people are forgetting about him. I haven't heard his name brought up much this offseason. He had 103 targets last year, so he's pretty efficient. With 810 yards, 5 touchdowns. That's pretty good for a guy that nobody's talking about, and you could probably snag him up for free.
What about Terrell Pryor?
Banged up. What about Terrell Pryor? I mean, he's got a great story, right? He's asking all the right questions. He's a perfect team player. I really want to see Terrell Pryor succeed. I really, really do, because he does all the right things. He says all the right things. I just don't know if I don't want to say if he's a real player, because he's a real athlete, but I don't know if he's a real NFL player. So
what's getting overlooked in terms of Terrell Pryor is the fact that we first saw Terrell Pryor flash with the Browns and Josh McCown. So there could be that rapport.
You're right there. I mean, they did. I just feel like they had a better line. I just feel like defenses didn't know what to do with him at first. He was running a lot of Wildcat stuff. He was getting a lot of rushing yards. That
depth chart in Cleveland was also barren at the wide receiver position. In New York, it's significantly better than what it was when Terrell Pryor was in Cleveland with Josh McCown.
I want him to do well. I can't really buy into him, but a last round flyer, you could do worse. You could definitely do worse. But I actually this Terrell Pryor or Kearse.
I'll take Kearse.
Yeah, same here, Kearse.
Yeah, I'll take Kearse. All right, another unfortunate. Man, this sucks. This part, football it's nice because it's here, right? But we got to report sucky stuff like Josh Doctson being evaluated at a shoulder injury. There was a report earlier today, came through SleeperBot. I think it was like someone pushed it and wasn't supposed to. Maybe some random dude or whatever. Maybe it wasn't that random. Maybe he's got inside information, and we'll find out more about it today, or actually by the time you hear it, you'll know if that guy, random dude, is right or not. Apparently, he came out and said that this guy can miss anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks because he's got a broken collarbone. Haven't really heard much of that. Sounds like it was an AC joint / shoulder sprain. Nothing major. This is what Ian Rappaport came out with. They got Jamison Crowder. He's having a big camp. So, I mean, what are we to make of this? I mean, this Redskins camp, we're going to talk about a few of the players here. Let's start with Josh Doctson.
Depending on the severity of this injury, it could be huge. And the Redskins could very well give Des Bryant what he wants and bring him in to compete against the Cowboys twice a year. But until we have more clarity on Josh Doctson, I'm going to pump the brakes on drafting him because, remember, in Doxson's rookie year, he missed nearly the whole season. So now is injury going to be an issue with Josh Doctson moving forward?
Yeah, especially since, he's had some good hype, coming up to the coming days, early, week of camp or so. It was about the second week or so. So, George, what are you thinking about this? You still drafting Josh Doctson, or you just kind of a wait-and-see approach?
I'm going to take the wait. I'm going to take the wait-and-see approach. I mean, there's a lot of hype coming out of the camp about him, how, they're not expected. Well, they're expected to use him a lot in the red zone, and he is a big body for that, so that's perfect for them. But I want to know more information. I mean, like you said, there is an injury history. He only played 2 games in 2016. he played all 16 last year. It's reported it's just a stinger, so I'm not overly concerned. But I'm not believing all the coach speak about how active they want to get him involved in the offense and all that, because every coach right now is saying every player is going to have career years and they're just all going to be fantastic, and every single one. And if you start believing that, there's like at least 50 players we should be taking 101.
Now, speaking of that, are you buying into the coach speak? I mean, Redskins.com reports Alex Smith looked extremely comfortable. Now, I don't know if he had like a nice sweater on or something like that. He was comfy, he had a blanket or whatever. But apparently he looked really comfortable throwing early to Jamison Crowder. Are we really hype about this? We talked a little bit about Jamison Crowder last show. A lot of the community seems to be hype about him. Are we buying into Jamison Crowder at all?
I'm more so buying into Alex Smith. He is a veteran quarterback, so him going to a new team, being comfortable, doesn't really surprise me. He's been around. He's been playing long enough. He's a very underrated quarterback. This isn't the first time he's had to switch teams and go be the starter somewhere else. They traded him from San Francisco to Kansas City, and then he got traded again. So it's not like it's a situation he's never been in. I'm not surprised he's got rapport with Jamison Crowder at all. Other than last year, which was an amazing year for Alex Smith, we know he likes those short and intermediate passes, and that's Jamison Crowder's game.
Yeah. What do you think? What are your thoughts about this, Anthony?
I think Jamison Crowder is the perfect wide receiver for Alex Smith, because we know Alex Smith had the huge year last year, but he's really a dink and dunk passer, which plays in Crowder's favor. I love him.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he should be able to produce, especially if Dotson is missing time. Even if Dotson isn't missing time, he should be a nice guy to target, and people are certainly targeting him in drafts. I mean, pretty early. And his 40 time is not quite Tyreek Hill, but I mean, he did run a 4.39. So I mean, it's not too far under. I mean, it's about 2 seconds under. It is, but still, he's a fast dude too. So I mean, we could see him used in that same kind of capacity, that same role. I mean, we might have to see that. I mean, because Chris Thompson apparently is saying that he won't likely be fully recovered from his broken fibula until November, a year after getting hurt. I mean, this hurts my heart. I love Chris Thompson. If you guys know anything about me, you know two things. I love Chris Thompson, and I mean, I've been loving Peyton Manning lately. Last year, I loved a lot of Kareem Hunt. So you might know three things about me, but definitely love Chris Thompson. And this hurts my heart that he's not going to be healthy. This is from what he's saying. I don't have quotes, apparently. There's no quotes here, but they're saying that he doesn't feel like he will be fully recovered until November. There was also a report, Gruden saying that he should be fine by the start of the season. But when you hear this from a guy, you know, it's kind of alarming. We also been seeing, Guice, catching passes out the backfield. So talk to me a little bit about the backfield out of the Redskins camp, and we'll start with you, Anthony.
God, I've been buying into Darius Guice more and more. The further we've gotten away from the draft and those reports that Darius Guice had character issues, which had him slip, Darius Guice has proven otherwise in every facet. And he's getting praise in meeting rooms. He's getting praise for his play on the field. He's going to be the clear-cut RB1. And now that Chris Thompson might not be fully healthy, this could be Guice's backfield.
Yeah. Now they still like Samaje Perine, right? I mean, they have to have some other depth pieces. They're saying they still like Rob Kelly. I mean, one of these guys are going to make the team. I'm still thinking Chris Thompson makes some sort of a dent, but man, this crushes me. I'm definitely falling back off Chris Thompson quite a bit. It hurts. George, what do you think about this backfield?
Well, let me give you some names. Derrick Henry, LaShawn McCoy, Alex Collins, Rashard Penny, Darius Guice. Of those five, how would you rank them?
Give me again. I think I got Collins first, probably. Just
LaShawn McCoy, Derrick Henry, Darius Guice, Alex Collins, Rashard Penny.
I'll let you go first, Anthony.
Okay, so you said Guice, McCoy, Collins, Henry,
and Penny.
Guice, McCoy. Wow, it's tough. You know what? I'm gonna go Guice, McCoy. So Guice, McCoy, Penny, Henry, and what was the fifth again?
Collins.
Guice, McCoy, Collins, Henry, Penny.
Who's?
Man, I'm gonna go McCoy still until we hear otherwise. I'm then gonna go Collins, then Guice, Henry, then Penny.
Okay. So what I did is I took the two running backs that are going based on ADP directly before Guice and the two that are going directly after. Anthony put Guice number one on the list. He's going behind both McCoy and Derrick Henry, followed by Alex Collins and Rashard Penny. They're separated by about 12 picks total between these five running backs. Who's you had McCoy first, then I think you had Collins, then
Guice, yeah.
Then Guice. Yeah, so Collins is going three picks after Guice, so they're interchangeable. We're splitting hairs. But the value you're going to get on Guice, especially after this news with Chris Thompson saying he might not be ready, getting him at the end of the third round, right now on Fantasy Football Calculator, he's going 310. That's fantastic value. I think the talk coming out that he was a bad interview and that something happened with his interview during the draft process and that he can't catch passes. I think that was all it was news at the time, but as Anthony said, the further and further we get away from the draft, it looks like it was more and more just noise. And I think Darius Guice is going to go out, and I think he's going to play with a chip on his shoulder, the size we haven't seen in a long time. And I would not be, and this is going to be a little bold, but I wouldn't be surprised if Darius Guice finishes as the number one rookie running back this year.
Wow. I mean, that is a little bold. I don't think too many people have him too far ahead. Too far behind Barkley. I think a lot of people do kind of have Barkley. Been seeing Penny. I've been seeing Jones kind of switch around with Penny. But yeah, I mean, I just feel like right now, okay, Guice was going, you said 310.
Yes, sir.
He's likely going to go where now? Like at the beginning of the third round? Does he have Kareem Hunt level? Can he do that in an offense? Can he be top five? We are drafting him in the third, fourth round.
Who was Kareem Hunt's quarterback last year?
MVP candidate. I mean,
it was Alex. It was Alex Smith.
Yeah.
Alex Smith likes to dunk and dink with the football. Darius Guice, I believe he can catch the ball. I think he's a lot better pass catcher than he gets credit for. I just think coming out of college, that wasn't what they were doing. That wasn't how the offense was ran in college. Just because the offense wasn't ran as a pass catching back, that doesn't mean he can't do it.
Right.
So I honestly, I would not be, like I said, it's bold. Every once in a while, you just got to stick it out there and stick to your guns. I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes ahead of Saquon Barkley as the RB1 this year. Would not surprise me at all.
It wouldn't surprise you if Guice finished better than Saquon?
Yes.
I have the same bet going with my co-host on the FF Faceoff.
Wow.
So I know I'm not crazy. There's somebody out there
absolutely not crazy.
You guys are not crazy, but maybe, I don't know, maybe the Jimmy G fans seeing this connection to George Kittle, maybe they're crazy, maybe they're not, maybe they know something we don't. I've been kind of high on George Kittle last year, and I wanted to see him do more. Now they got a whole offseason together, and he didn't really have a good quarterback last year. So, I mean, are you guys buying into George Kittle? There's a lot of hype around him. Apparently, Garoppolo found Kittle in 3 long completions, highlighted by Kittle's one-hand grab near the right sideline on one play. So Kittle, he's the number one tight end for you guys. Start with Anthony.
Borderline. And I say borderline because the same hype that we see with George Kittle, there was in Atlanta with Austin Hooper, and Austin Hooper wasn't all that effective when Shanahan was there.
Right. That's true. So you think a lot of people are looking at, okay, well, Garoppolo, Brady, Kittle, Gronk, and that's it. I mean, it's not the same offense. You think a lot of people are just looking at that and just saying, well, okay, pencil him, he could be a top tier, tight end because of that. You think we're seeing that?
People are also buying into Jimmy Garoppolo so much, and I'm one of them, that he figures, okay, well, everybody's going to go off. Everybody can't go off.
Right.
It just can't happen. And as much as I like Kittle, I just can't take him. I can't even fit him into my top 10. I like Jack Doyle over George Kittle.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, Jack Doyle caught 80 balls with Jacoby Brissett. So Jack Doyle, even without Andrew Luck, in PPR leagues, Jack Doyle's a steal.
Super steal. George, what are your thoughts about Kittle? Is he getting too much love or not enough?
Well, anybody who takes the comparison, Brady to Gronk, Jimmy Garoppolo was the backup, so obviously he's going to throw it to his time. If that's your logic, your logic is completely flawed. First off, right now Jimmy Garoppolo is not Tom Brady, right. And I'll make another bold prediction. This one's super bold. George Kittle is not Rob Gronkowski, okay? It's bold, I know. But listen, I'm going bold tonight, okay? No. So the question was, is George Kittle a tight end one? Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, you look at the tight ends
right.
From like 8 to 12 or 8 to 15, and it's like, okay, yeah, sure.
Fractions.
He could finish. Would I be shocked if George Kittle finished as a tight end one? No, I would not. Would I be surprised if George Kittle finished as the 15th best tight end? No, I would not. So, can he be a tight end one? Sure, absolutely. Can he not be a tight end one? Sure, absolutely. I do like the fact that we got to see Jimmy G throw to him last year. I think a lot of people are reading into that last game, though.
Right.
I mean, the last game of the season, Week 17, they were in Los Angeles against the Rams. Rams were resting their players because they already clinched the playoff berth, and Kittle went out for 100 yards. So, I mean, you can read a lot into that one game if you want, but Kittle only scored 2 touchdowns last year.
Yeah.
So I would pump the brakes a little bit. Like I said, can he finish as a tight end one? Sure. Can he finish outside tight end one? Sure. Why not?
Yeah. So, man, I agree with you guys there. I mean, but let's talk about somebody who probably will finish as a tight end one, and it's Delaney Walker. Marcus Mariota said this chemistry between Delaney and Walker is natural. He loves how Walker creates mismatches against linebackers and defensive backs. He makes it easy for me. Now, this is one of the reasons why I love Delaney Walker. I've been high on him for years now when everybody wants to fade him. It's because he makes it easy for Mariota. No other reason. Yes, Corey Davis is there and they want to feature him. But Mariota loves to throw to the tight end. He loves it. I mean, it's safety. It's security. And it makes it easy for him. Delaney Walker, are we buying that he's going to be another top 5? Is he going to have another top 5 year? We'll start with you, George.
I don't think he'll be top 5. He'll finish between the 5 and 7, 5 and 8 range. The rapport with Marcus Mariota is real. We've seen it. We've seen it in years past. He caught the second most passes of his career last year with Marcus Mariota. Mariota loves his tight end, as you said, and I think he's comfortable because he knows Delaney Walker is a veteran and he trusts him, which is huge. You don't really know if he trusts Corey Davis. I'm not sure he's really going to be able to trust Deion Lewis to catch the ball coming out the backfield, but that's another story for another day. I'd question his injury history and his health and if he's able to stay healthy. But I feel like Delaney Walker's that tight end that you don't feel like you're not happy to grab. Like when you're drafting and you take Delaney Walker, you're not thrilled. You're not disappointed. You're not thrilled. You don't get that warm and fuzzy feeling inside like, yes, I got Delaney Walker. I got a steal. But he goes out and he produces for you week in and week out. He's just constant. He's consistent and he's steady. And in the position of the tight end where somebody who's consistent and steady is gold. Yeah, I've got no problem taking Delaney Walker. Like I said, he should finish between 5 and 7 for me.
Man, he's the Fitzgerald of tight ends. What are your thoughts about this, Anthony?
I like Delaney Walker. He's nothing but consistency. Last year did alarm me because it seemed like anytime they had Titans highlights on the NFL Red Zone channel, it was Delaney Walker getting a little banged up, and as Jonnu Smith owners, the fantasy football community was getting excited. It never happened. Delaney Walker just continued to produce, and I like what you said. You're not happy. You're not sad. You're kind of like, okay, I got a consistent player. It's like marriage after 5 years.
Great analogy.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay.
We're here. Let's power through. We got a couple kids. Let's power through the next 20 years or so, or 30, whatever God gives us, unless we end up on Dateline and you kill me or I kill you or something like that.
It's the IT network.
It's like when you call your wife and say, hey, what are we having for dinner? We're having meatloaf. Oh, okay. No problem.
Okay. All right, whatever.
Delaney Walker is meatloaf.
Man, where's the meatloaf? Where's the meatloaf? Another solid day for Andrew Luck. Apparently, we've been hearing so many reports. Luck apparently is back. Does this mean T.Y. is? Apparently, he finished 16 of 19 with only 2 drops. Yeah, T.Y. Hilton synced up pretty much the whole time. Are we buying that T.Y. is a top 8 receiver again?
I'm buying it. I've been buying it.
Yeah. Love it. That's some good, nice cold drink going down my body, and I'm feeling refreshed by having this guy on my team. Love me some T.Y. Hilton.
Yep, and where you're getting him at right now, it's criminal. Yeah. I mean, he's only 1 season removed from being the NFL league leader in yardage. Yeah. And he's going after guys like a Mike Evans, a Doug Baldwin, an Adam Thielen. I mean, I'll take T.Y. Hilton over all of them.
I'm seeing Diggs go over him.
I'm going off the ADP calculator. They got T.Y. going in pretty much the middle of the 3rd round.
Okay.
If I start out running back, and I come back in the 3rd round and I'm landing T.Y. Hilton as my wide receiver 1, I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I mean, that's good stuff. He does nothing but amazing stuff when he's paired up with Hilton. Hilton with Luck, and he's healthy. I mean, he should have another great year, Anthony.
Yeah, you just like what you said, you can easily go running back here, and if you wind up with a Tyreek Hill, who I'm very high on, or a T.Y. Hilton, or even an Adam Thielen, I love the 3rd round wide receivers. I think they're all values at their draft position. I've even seen A.J. Green slide to the 3rd.
Wow.
But if you want to talk about T.Y. Hilton, he's already at the back end of my top 10 wide receiver rankings. And as long as Andrew Luck continues to play well and we don't see any type of injury regression, I'm buying all the T.Y. Hilton I can.
Yep.
All right, we got a few more notes here. We got Emmanuel Sanders hype. Apparently, there's some hype left from Denver camp. Emmanuel Sanders performing at a high level. He's back, apparently. There's no doubt he just snared a deep touchdown from Case Keenum on a one-on-one drill, meshing well with his new quarterback. The extra time they put in the offseason is showing, says Cecil Lamney. So are we buying that Sanders is back to productivity? Can he be a wide receiver 2 for you this season with Case Keenum at the helm?
I'm completely torn on the Denver Broncos. I'm completely torn on what we're going to get out of running back, and I'm completely torn of what we're going to get at wide receiver. Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas, both 30 years old. I actually thought if Cortland Sutton could have been the one who forced one of the others out of town. I thought Emmanuel Sanders would have been part of a trade or veteran cuts at this point, to be honest with you. So, no, I'm not really buying Emmanuel Sanders. It's hard for me to buy into Case Keenum fully because I don't trust the Broncos' running game. I don't trust the Broncos' coaching staff. And I'm starting not to trust John Elway at picking quarterbacks.
I'm buying. Listen, I wish people would stop talking about Emmanuel Sanders. Just Stop
Who's
it,
talking
please.
about the guy? I mean, Cecil Lammy seems like the only guy that was talking about
No,
him.
there's other people talking about him. His ADP is starting to rise, which really hurts me because I love Emmanuel Sanders this year. I think he can fill in absolutely he'll be a solid wide receiver 2/flex for you most weeks, in my opinion. The one thing I do like is we've seen Case Keenum, and we mentioned this a little bit when we were talking with Josh earlier in the week. We've seen Case Keenum sustain 2 high-level wide receivers. We've seen him do this before, and he did this with Jerick McKinnon and Latavius Murray in the backfield. Now, I'll make another bold prediction. The Broncos' backfield right now is better than Latavius Murray and Jerick McKinnon last year. So I'm not, down on the Denver Broncos offense at all. I actually kind of like it. I think you're getting great value with DT. I think you're going to get great value with Emmanuel Sanders. And if Freeman gets the starting job, I'll be really thrilled with this offense because we've seen this type of offense with Case Keenum before, and we've seen it be very productive. And it's also not everything like in Minnesota last year will be on Case Keenum because the Denver Broncos have a fantastic defense. So their defense will keep them in games most of the time. And I just think that'll take some pressure off of Case Keenum, and he'll be able to relax a little bit and do what Case Keenum can do. I mean, the only time we've ever seen Case Keenum be a really bad quarterback is under Jeff Fisher, and I give him a mulligan for that because Jeff Fisher can ruin Todd Gurley. He can ruin anybody for anybody.
Right. Man, that is some hot tea right there. That's some hot take right there. I got to blow on it, put it down, maybe put an ice cube in it before I sip it because that is a hot take right there. Are you buying any of this, Anthony? I mean, McKinnon, Latavius Murray, I think both those guys were good. I mean, Freeman,
Latavius Murray
Booker
was quietly productive, and so was Jerick McKinnon last year.
Yeah. I can't get behind that one.
They were productive, absolutely. But
I can't get behind that one, though, man. I can't get behind that one. I'm going to put this tea down as it's too hot for me. That was too hot. It burned my mouth. That's that stuff.
And Emmanuel Sanders ADP, right? He's right in the middle of the 7th round.
Yep.
And right before him is Michael Crabtree, and right after him is Marquise Goodwin. I will take either one of those players or both.
They both have probably better upside or floors. Goodwin has higher upside. Michael has a better floor probably than Sanders, given that he's going to be the only one there. I mean, I'll take the late guys. I'll take a guy from this, backfield. Give me D'Angelo Henderson last round. I'll drop my kicker and pick up D'Angelo Henderson if they find out that he's starting or the first week or so. Hey, I got a starter. Or if same thing with Cortland Sutton. I'll grab these guys late. But yeah, spending so much high capital on these guys could be a mistake. I am buying Thomas still. He is right around, wide receiver 15 for me. I got to check my rankings. But yeah, he's right around there. So I'm still buying Thomas. Sanders could bounce back, but I do believe you're paying too high of a price right now, given those guys that he's around. It's kind of risky. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But as we segue into the new topic, another topic, 2 major takeaways from Niners camp as we talk about Jerick McKinnon. He caught a ton of passes, included 2 touchdowns during the red zone 7-on-7 drills. And apparently we talk about Marquise Goodwin as well. It's funny that says it's funny to watch corners try to keep up with Marquise Goodwin during one-on-ones. I mean, we've talked a little bit about San Fran and the offense. We're buying these guys. This is just we're just talking about these guys. You guys have anything to add about this? We talked a little bit about these players already.
No, it doesn't surprise me. I'm a big Marquise Goodwin fan ever since his days in Buffalo. It's actually funny that the Buffalo Bills at one time had Sammy Watkins, they had Robert Woods, and Marquise Goodwin on their roster at the same time. It's like the Oklahoma City Thunder when they had all those players and didn't do anything with them.
You got to lose your job for that one.
Well, in their defense, it was the Bills.
In their defense.
How much are you buying Jerick McKinnon?
No, I'm not buying him, not in his ADP. I think his ADP is way too high.
Yeah, I mean, I'd take him a few guys over him. I think I'm still taking Jordan Howard over him. I'm still taking who else is in the third round? I think he definitely belongs in the third round. He's going in the second round, mid-second round. I still rather have him over like Mixon, you know.
Right, right.
I still rather have him over. You know what? Maybe he's not, because I feel like he's in that McCaffrey zone. And I've seen McCaffrey go really high, and I think McCaffrey going that high is kind of a mistake too. McCaffrey and McKinnon are two. I feel like they're kind of the same player, and I don't know why. I mean, I know why, but maybe it's appropriate, especially in the PPR. I just don't love having those pieces that early, and I guess maybe you kind of have to pick them though if you're depending on where you draft, or you have to reach for a Jordan Howard. I don't think reaching for Jordan Howard is a reach, but if you go by recent ADPs, it would be. But he's probably, you know, the only guy I would probably want to have him over. Other than that, I'm fine with Jerick McKinnon at his ADP. So you guys are not liking it, sounds like?
So when we did the Mockman on Monday night, I participated in a couple of drafts, and both drafts McKinnon went dead smack in the middle of the second round. That to me is crazy. There's no way I'm spending that kind of capital on Jerick McKinnon. If I can get him in the third round, so in the way I draft, he would not be my starting running back. I'm fine with that. He'd be a starting running back for me, but he wouldn't be my RB1. I would have another running back with him. He would not be my RB1. I just wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. But as an RB2, I don't mind it, but I don't like his ADP. So full point PPR, he's going 2.01, and half point PPR, he's going 2.09. So, I mean, it's depending on your league scoring. I get it, but there's also a lot of noise about Matt Breida right now.
Right, yeah. I love Breida as well. Yeah.
And I'll take Matt Breida late and be perfectly content because I can't think of another running back that's gone from one team to another after 5 years and been as good as the McKinnon hype is getting. It's getting out of control right now.
I think it's just given running backs. I mean, running backs, it's not in the Shanahan office. I mean, obviously we're buying into that as well. I mean, and if maybe it's the Tevin Coleman Freeman, you know, maybe they didn't have that going on with Hyde and Breida. But I mean, I really like Breida. I think also they were trying to use Joe Williams some, just didn't seem to work. But maybe a second year into the offense, we see some of that, you know. So I definitely like Breida a lot. I'm finding myself, you know, having him pretty much on. If I can't get him on all my teams, I find myself not liking my team because I like him a lot. I liked them a lot, especially after the draft. They didn't seem to add anything. You know, yeah, McKinnon, but yeah, I love Breida. What are your thoughts about Breida?
Very similar to what you said. I think Breida is going to be effective, but I do buy into Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah.
My only issue with McKinnon is that his ADP is higher than Christian McCaffrey. And you could say the same thing about Joe Mixon. I think Christian McCaffrey should be ahead of both of them. But, you know, much like what George said, if you're going to draft like an Ezekiel Elliott early and you want to go running back, you can happily and comfortably take either McKinnon or Christian McCaffrey as your RB2. And then go attack those round 3 receivers we were just talking about.
I want to thank our guest again, Anthony Cervino from Gridiron Experts, head writer over there. Thanks again for coming on the show. Anthony, you got anything you want to plug?
Yeah, guys, everybody who's listening, go to our YouTube channel. We do live video content. We do highlight reels. We also have our shows in podcast form on iTunes and anywhere else you could put an RSS feed for a podcast. And like you said, go to gridironexperts.com. Check out my weekly sleepers column in season. I'll also be doing a big sleeper piece for the upcoming fantasy draft season.
And follow him on Twitter. He's one of the best followers, best people to follow on Twitter. He's always pumping out good stuff, and he's pretty friendly too. He's easy to reach. He'll reach back out to you. George, tell the good people where to find you. Always putting out great stuff as well. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at BFTGPod. And you can find me, Prophet Hus, SleeperWire Hus on Twitter, and Prophet Hus on the SleeperBot app.